हम्म बोले
questioning. Now, an interesting point is that Krishna plays different melodies on these flutes for different purposes. I didn't know this, but it's really nice. He plays different melodies on his flutes for different purposes. And actually, there is a specific order that he plays the melodies in to accomplish these different purposes. His first melody, because he plays different melodies for different purposes. So his first melody that he likes to play causes demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva to break their meditation. And they forget everything in astonishment. With this first melody, it's described, Lord Anantadev sways his head like he's hypnotized. And the second melody that Krishna comes up with makes the Jamuna flow backwards. His third melody makes the moon stop moving. His fourth melody makes cows run to him and become stunned just by hearing the flute. And the fifth melody, which actually we often refer to as a note, attracts the gopis and makes them come running to him. And the sixth melody makes stones melt and creates the autumn season. Isn't this wonderful? The seventh melody that he plays, specifically, manifests all seasons. And the eighth melody is meant exclusively for Srimati Radharani, in that it's described, it takes the form of her name and calls for her. So Krishna also has a flute named Mahananda. It looks like a fish hook. It's described that captures the fish of Srimati Radharani's heart and mind. Another flute which has 6 holes is known as Madana Jankriti. Madana Jankriti. And in Radha Krishna Gunadisha Dipika, it's described that Krishna has a flute called Sarala, which is very unique. This flute makes a very low, soft tone, like the sound of a softly singing cuckoo. Here in India, we hear the cuckoos, and you can hear them, especially in the morning, singing very softly. So this sarala, it makes a low, soft tone, like the sound of a softly singing cuckoo bird. And Krishna really likes this flute. He's very fond of playing this flute in the ragas of Gaudiya and Gajari. I don't know those ragas, but those of you who are connoisseurs of music, Gaudiya and Gajari, he uses that flute for that purpose. Now, an interesting phenomena of Krishna's flute playing is that the sound of the flute can only be heard by the person or the party for whom it's intended. You know, Krishna plays for a particular person or a particular group, and only those persons or that person can hear. This is the mystical nature of Krishna's flute playing. He's the master of all mystics. For example, if Krishna plays his flute for his cows, only the cows can hear it and no one else. And if Krishna plays his flute for the gopis, only the gopis can hear it and no one else. And when the gopis hear the sound of Krishna's flute, they often abruptly leave their household duties and run out to meet Krishna in the forest. And I was reading, other family members can't comprehend what suddenly happened to the gopis and where they went to. They couldn't hear it. Like, where are you going? Why? I was reading that sometimes a gopi is only like halfway through cooking a roti, for example, and when she hears Krishna's flute. So she runs out of the house, leaving her husband waiting for the roti to arrive on his plate. But the husband couldn't hear the flute, so he doesn't know what's going on. Really mystical. Only Krishna can do this. For cows, Krishna, he uses the flute. For cows, Krishna sits atop, we've discussed many times, Krishna sits atop, for example, a tree, a Terkadamba. Terkadamba, that's where Nanda Maharaja's original barn is, or Goshala. So when it's time for the cows to come home, there's lots of kadamba trees there at Dhira Kadamba. So Krishna climbs up a tree at Dhira Kadamba tree, and he plays his flute to call all the cows home. But with his flute, he actually calls each and every one of them by their names. He can play their names on his flute. So he plays the names like that, like Chandrika, Devali, Ivali. These are some of the names that I remember of Krishna's cows. And when he plays his flute for each cow, he plays their name. Only that cow is able to hear her name. Only that cow is able to hear her name. All the other cows can't hear. She hears it through the sound of Krishna's flute. And I was reading, she gets delighted to hear her name being called by Krishna and comes running towards him. So we can see that Krishna's flute plays a very integral part in his pastimes. So much so that he's known by names based solely, how could you say, on his relationship with his flute. Like, for example, he's famously known as Venu Gopal, Bansilal, Murali, and Murali Dhar. These are names connected to his flute, like that. So now, what else? Oh yeah, in Vrindavan, the flute is Krishna's only paraphernalia. His significant paraphernalia. He has a buffalo horn, he has a stick, but they're just kind of used once in a while. The Acharya says his flute really is his only paraphernalia. Like when he's in Dwarka, Mathura, he has weapons like bows and chakras and things like that. What is it? When he has a bow, he's Damodara. When he has a chakra, he's Chakradhari. But when he has his flute, he's Venudhar, Vamsidhar. What would Krishna be without his flute? Sometimes you see they take the flute out, the pujaris, when the Lord's on the altar, for him to take prasadam. And sometimes I've seen they forget to put it back in. I've seen a few occasions. You're like, wait a minute, where's Krishna's flute? He's Venudhara, Vamsidhara. So his favorite instrument, obviously, is the flute. While Vrindavaneshwari, Srimati Radharani, her favorite instrument is a lute called Kachapi Veena. Kachapi Veena. But still at the same time, I was reading, Radharani also likes to play a flute. And according to her gopis, she actually plays a flute better than Krishna. I was reading, Rupa Goswami says that the sound of Radharani's lute is so beautiful that it blocks the holes of Krishna's flute, making it go silent. Wow. And the music of Radha's lute not only silences Krishna's flute, but also charms its player, Krishna, who is otherwise known to be unconquerable. So Srimati Radharani and Krishna actually, they often play duets in performances. She plays the lute, Krishna plays the flute, and it's described, this nourishes their mutual love by playing these instruments together, like a little concert. Now the Brajavasis, especially the gopis in the rasa dance, they, during the rasa dance, they also play a rich variety of musical instruments. But Srimati Radharani, even though she's the best musician, during the rasa dance, she doesn't play instruments, because the gopis play instruments during the rasa lila. It's just one of the details. She doesn't play. She just prefers to dance. And when Radha dances, it's described, she is like a diamond surrounded by a golden band of smiling gopis, playing veenas, mridangas, talas, and kartalas, and other musical instruments. Isn't that beautiful? But as much as the gopis admire Krishna's flute playing, they actually consider Krishna's flute to be their enemy. Wow. Why? because it drinks the nectar of Krishna's lips without any obstacles. Why? Well, because for the gopis there's so many obstacles, even to get to be with Krishna, what to speak to and enjoy the nectar of his lips. So the flute's always enjoying the nectar of Krishna's lips, so the gopis consider it their enemy. They actually consider Krishna's lips to be their property, according to Rupa Goswami, not the flute's property. Transcendental nectarian detail. Actually, a Leela. One time Krishna had an idea to play his flute, how would you say, in a certain way, so as to attract the gopis to come where he was standing in the forest. He thought, I will play a tune that will bewilder and attract the gopis, especially Sri Radha. Then he thought to himself, I just need to find the notes to which those girls will be most susceptible and to which their senses will be attracted. So Krishna, it's really cute, he began experimenting with different flute melodies to achieve this purpose. So one day he played a tune that stunned his cows, who gave up eating grass in favor of just sitting there relishing his flute song with their ears and tasting the sweetness of Krishna's face with their eyes. So that didn't bring the gopis, or Radha. So the next day, Krishna experimented with another tune. And this time the forest animals and birds were stunned. And like the cows, they all stood still where they were, as if they had, it's described, had been confined within invisible cages. Like they'd been confined within invisible cages. Didn't attract the gopis, or Radha. On the third day, Krishna's tune attracted the deer, which actually flocked to him in mass. And mesmerized by his attractive appearance, they worship Krishna with love-filled eyes. Now, I was also reading that the gopis, they were somehow aware of these practice sessions. Krishna's practicing, the Lord is practicing these practice sessions, and they told Krishna's mother, Yashoda, that Krishna was practicing. They said to Mother Yasoda, "Oh, pious Mother Yasoda, your son, who is expert in the art of herding cows, has invented various novel styles of flute playing." They just mentioned that to Mother Yasoda. Now, on the fourth day, Krishna played another tune which attracted the demigoddesses from Svargaloka, who were so bewildered by that sound that their clothes loosened and their ornaments fell off. And on the fifth day, Krishna played a melody so powerful that all animate things became unconscious, and inanimate things came to life. Wow. On the fifth day, Krishna played a melody so powerful that all animate things, meaning moving things like you and me, became unconscious, and all inanimate things like chairs and sofas and pots came to life. So the acharyas say that despite all of this, Krishna's mystic potency playing his flute, the gopis remained unaffected. Still, they remain unaffected. However, the acharyas write, but the river Jamuna was deeply moved. The river Jamuna was deeply moved. Actually, I was reading when the Jamuna River heard this particular flute song on day 5, I think it must have been, she stopped flowing and became completely bewildered. Her waves swelled and her waters trembled. Then, changing course, she flowed towards Krishna and offered lotus flowers at his feet. Pretty powerful flute song. But unfortunately, that melody, like all the others, it didn't attract the gopis. So Krishna just kept trying new melodies, day after day after day, that mesmerized, I was reading, the clouds overhead and Vrindavan's mountains, even Govardhan Hill. So finally, Krishna found the proper melody and just in time, because feeling separation from Krishna, the gopis were becoming frantic, to the point that their in-laws thought that their sons had married mad women. Krishna's trying to come up with a tune, but the gopis are waiting because they always want to be with Krishna. So they're waiting. What is this melody that's going to just drag us to his lotus feet? So finally he found the proper tune, just in time. Because feeling separation from Krishna, they were becoming frantic to the point that their in-laws were thinking their sons had married mad women, mad with ecstasy. And we could understand, it's described, the most disturbed of all the gopis was Sri Radha, who at one point was thinking, well, how can I become a bamboo flute? She thought, Krishna's flute is fortunate because as a male, he doesn't have to be shy like us gopis. Thus it rests in Krishna's hands and transforms the nectar of Krishna's lips into beautiful music that causes the rivers to swell and the bamboo along the river's banks to shed tears in the form of nectarian honey. It appears bamboo can produce honey. Then she said, Vrindavaneshwari, Srimati Radharani, she said, I pray for the body of a flute. I pray for the body of a bamboo flute, she said. I reject this body of a supposedly respectable woman. No other type of body can relish what the flute does, as Krishna plays it with eagerness and affection. And she continued, the day I become a flute, my consciousness will surely ebb. No doubt I will forget my identity, but Krishna will remember me as a gopi who became a piece of wood from suffering and separation from him. No doubt I will forget my identity, but Krishna will remember me as the gopi who became a piece of wood from suffering and separation from him. Hare Krishna. Vrindavaneshwari Srimati Radharani Ki. So eventually, Sri Radha and the gopis' intense desire to be with Krishna was fulfilled when they had a rasa dance. For when Krishna later played his flute at Vamsivat to call them for the rasa dance, they all came running and eventually danced with the Lord for an entire night of Rama. Hare Krishna. This is like, I'm really looking forward to this series. All this tadiya, it's called tadiya. Tadiya means those things in relationship to Krishna or his devotees or the process of devotional service, tadiya. And they can be a stimulus and awakening because of their potency, their attractive nature, they're being connected to Radha and Krishna. They can help to awaken our love for the divine couple. So we're surrounded by all this paraphernalia, and yes, so we began with the flute. Actually, we have more flute pastimes to cover. So let's just say this is part one, and part two will continue with these flute leelas next Friday. And I'd like to conclude today with a statement from Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion, chapter 37, which is entitled, if I remember correctly, Impetus for Krishna's Service. Beautiful poem there we find. Quote, in the Vidakta Madhava, there is the following statement. When Krishna was playing on his flute, Baladev very anxiously declared, just see how, after hearing the transcendental sound of Krishna's flute, Indra, the king of heaven, is crying in his heavenly kingdom. And from his teardrops falling on the ground, Vrindavan appears to have become a celestial residence of the demigods. Krishna's Vamsi flute ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Once again, thank you, Prabhus. I'm in Mayapur Dham. Today I'm going up to Ramkeli with a group of 50 devotees tomorrow. I've never been there. That's where Nawab Hussain Shah had his capital here in Bengal, and he forced Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis into his service. So many pastimes. Sanatana Goswami was in jail, I remember, for 8 months there. That jail still exists. So myself and these wonderful devotees accompanying me, we're going to go to that jail. We'll have one Maha Mahotsav Kirtan. Visit all these holy places there, spend the night and come back tomorrow. And Ananta Vrindavan Das will be producing a wonderful video for all of you, so you can also relish that Leela Snan. Okay? So be back in 1 week. Shishi Gaur Nitai ki, Shishi Krishna Balaram ki, Shishi Radha Shama Sundar ki, Vrindavaneshwari Shrimati Radharani ki, Mayapur Dham, Shishi Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Krishna Sankirtan ki, Nitai Gaur Nitai, Jai Jai Sisi Radhe Sham. Glories to God. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome back once again to our ongoing series on the glories of our most beloved Sri Vrindavan Dham. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane. All glories to Prabhupada. So, we're continuing with our mini-series on the subject of stimulation for ecstatic love, and this will be part 2. Once again, this series is inspired by chapter 26 of Srila Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion, which has the same title actually, Stimulation for Ecstatic Love. These lectures, as we explained in the first lecture, part 1, are a study of things which help to stimulate or awaken our love for Krishna. In our last lecture, we discussed the glories of Krishna's flute, and we didn't finish. So this will be part 2, and we'll continue to speak about Krishna's favorite instrument. The Acharyas have pointed out that Krishna's flute is they say, a unique feature that distinguishes him even from his personal expansion as Narayan. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 23, verses 84 to 85, we hear as follows, and I'll quote, above Narayan, Krishna has 4 specific transcendental qualities. Number 1, his wonderful pastimes. Number 2, an abundance of wonderful associates who are very dear to him, like gopis. Number 3, his incredible beauty. And last but not least, number 4, the wonderful vibration of his flute. I was reading that Krishna has numerous kinds of flutes that he stores in a special chest at Nandagaon. The Acharyas say that the Venu flute, which is made of bamboo reed that comes from the Yamuna shore, has 6 holes, and it's the smallest of all his flutes. We touched on that flute in our last lecture. And it's described that although it's an inanimate piece of wood, by the touch of Krishna's lips, it has been endowed with full awareness, so much so that it enjoys the privilege of being an intimate friend of Krishna. The holes by which a flute is played are called chidram, C-H-I-D-R-A-M. However, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has written that Krishna's flute appears to have no holes. Wait a minute. The holes by which a flute is played are called chidram. However, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has written that Krishna's flute appears to have no holes. Nishtridam. So how can this be? Well, all things are resolved in Krishna consciousness. One poet writes very nicely to resolve this apparent contradiction. Quote, it's deep. The essence of Shri Krishna's beauty, condensed in the form of his pleasing smile, when poured into the flute as the nectar of his lips, fills it to the brim, giving the appearance that the Venu has no holes. You know, when we read Krishna Book or Srimad Bhagavatam, we know that much has been written about the effect or the result of hearing this unique sound vibration of Krishna's flute. For example, I was researching and I found in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 24:207, we hear, quote, "My dear friend, when Krishna and Balaram passed through the forest, leading their cows with their cowherd boyfriends, they both carry ropes with which, at the time of milking, they bind to the rear legs of the cows. When they play on their flutes, all moving living entities are stunned, and non-moving living entities experience ecstatic jubilation by their sweet music. All these things are certainly very wonderful." All these things are certainly very wonderful. Now, wonderful is also the pastime of raining flutes. There's a pastime. It's called by our acharyas raining flutes. Well, we've heard of, rainwater. Sometimes it snows or there's hail, but raining flutes? Yes, indeed. One day, Krishna was meeting with Srimati Radharani in her rooms at Yavat. He snuck in. When suddenly, who should walk in but Jatila, Radharani's mother-in-law. Seeing her, Krishna literally dove out of a window, but he left his flute behind. Now, fortunately, as we all know, Jatila is half blind, so she couldn't see exactly who it was that dove out of the window. But as she often does, she's always thinking of Krishna, never forgetting him. She's a Vrajavasi. As she often does, she assumed it was Krishna and said to Shri Radhika, "That was Krishna, wasn't it?" But Radharani denied it. Unfortunately, though, Jatila then saw Krishna's flute lying on a table, and she immediately concluded that he must have been there. She blurted out, "That was Krishna, I know it. There's his flute. At last I've caught you red-handed with that rascal." So Srimati Radharani didn't know what to say, but bold Lalita, always there to protect her dear Radha, she's Radharani's principal girlfriend, she stepped forward and kind of, how's it described, matter-of-factly declared, "That's not Krishna's flute. Don't be ridiculous." So Jatila was astonished. She thought, how could Lalita deny that, Krishna had been there when the flute was such clear evidence that he must have been? She thought like that. So Jatila asked in a scornful way, it's described, well, how did this flute get here then? How did this flute get here? You girls don't play flutes. Only Krishna plays flutes. So how can you deny the obvious? But Lalita was not even slightly discouraged. how's it described? She folded her arms and declared with complete conviction. She said, Jatila, don't you know? Today it's raining flutes. Don't you know? Today it's raining flutes. So Jatila said, raining flutes? That's completely crazy. How dare you say such rubbish? Then without hesitating for even a second, Lalita said, just look out the window then. Just look out the window. So Jatila went to the window, was mumbling about rascal girls lying and talking nonsense. And when she got to the window and looked outside, sure enough, it was raining flutes. Somebody should do a painting. Sure enough, it was raining flutes. Voila, say so. Now, it's an interesting point that although the flute is Krishna's favorite instrument and is so very dear to him, from the following pastime, it appears that Sri Radha has more control over that flute than Krishna. That's not surprising because, she has full control over him at all times by her bhav, by her love. And Krishna likes it that way. One time, Srimati Radharani left the rasa dance. And Krishna, noticing this, he also left that particular rasa dance, looking for her. He wandered through, all the kunjas around Govardhan Hill, calling out Radharani's name, until finally, somewhere near Jatipur, he found Radharani in a kunja with Lalita and Vishaka and some other special gopis. But when Krishna came up to Radharani, she turned her face away and said to Lalita, tell that rascal boy to go away. So Krishna bowed his head down, and with tears in his eyes, he left that place. And he went to another kunj, where the acharyas describe he laid down and he just went to sleep. He was so upset he just went to sleep. So then Radha, smiling, told some of her friends to find out where Krishna went and report back to her. So her scouts eventually found Krishna laying down sleeping in this other kunja, this other forested area, with his crown off and with his flute under his hand, sleeping. So when the girls came back and told this to Radharani, suddenly all her girlfriends, like Lalita, Vishaka, Rati Manjari, all of them, they got the same idea at the same time with Sri Radha. They all thought this is all, Purnamasi's arrangement. She makes all these wonderful arrangements. Actually, very early each morning, she meets with Vrinda Devi, her helper, and they come up with these amazingly beautiful, sweet, loving pastimes. So all these gopis, they had the same thought at the same time. They thought, no one is guarding Krishna. He's asleep. He's alone in the kunja. This is the perfect opportunity to steal his flute. So all the gopis got together and very silently they snuck into that particular kunj, that grove where Krishna was, and they saw he was still asleep. A little note here. Actually, Krishna, Acharyas say, he wasn't sleeping, he was pretending. So the gopis started discussing how they were going to steal that flute. So Lalita, she said, this flute, this particular flute, can only be stolen by someone who is very clever, very quick, and very fast. Someone who's very clever, very quick, and very fast. And immediately, all the girls, simultaneously, they turned around and looked at Sri Radha. So Radha smiled, because here was an opportunity to what? Associate with her beloved. So she tied up her sari, kind of like to look like pants or something, which would make it easier for her to go, not make any noise. And what did she do? She tied a cloth around her bangles and her ankle bells so they wouldn't make any noise. And she started, moving through the kunja, moving through the grove, very quietly. Because, when you walk, some twigs can crack or you can move some leaves. She's so expert. She went through that kunja without making even a little sound. And she snuck up to where Krishna was. And then it's described, she moved very carefully and very deliberately, one step at a time, those last few meters, just to make sure Krishna didn't wake up. And finally, when she got to where Krishna was, she very carefully reached out and grabbed his flute. Then she jumped up and ran, like the wind that's described. While all the other gopis who were watching, they just giggled and laughed. Now, of course, Sri Radhika and her Lalita and Vishaka and her gopi friends, they didn't see, but as soon as the flute was gone, a little smile came across Krishna's face. He was laying there again, pretending to be asleep. And as soon as the flute disappeared, a smile came across his face. So after some time, Krishna got up and he came back to that first kunja where the gopis were. And they didn't notice him at first. They just kind of ignored him. It's kind of the common thing in the pastime. They just, oh, here he is again, the son of Nanda Maharaj. So Krishna called out, "Hey, do any of you know where my flute is? Do any of you have my flute?" So all the gopis looked at him like, "What do you mean, do we have your flute? Why would we have your flute?" And Lalita says, "Just see, Krishna, first you offend Radharani, and now you accuse some of her friends of thievery. You are such a rascal boy." So at this point, Krishna came forward and, started personally searching the gopis for his flute. And they were going, "Don't touch me, you rascal, don't touch me." And Krishna said, "I'm looking for my flute." So at this point, the girls, the gopis, they started secretly handing the flute to one another, so he couldn't find it. Maybe one gopi had it, he came to check, she'd silently give it to a friend, like this. And finally, one of the gopis handed the flute to Sri Radha, right in front of Krishna. So now Krishna knew that Sri Radha had the flute. So she just stood there smiling with Krishna's flute in hand. Now because she's chief of all the gopis, Krishna couldn't just go and start roughing her up looking for the flute. So to the joy of all the gopis present, and to the joy of all Gaudiya Vaishnavas, past, present, and future, Krishna knelt down in front of Radharani, took her hand, and begged her to give his flute back. In essence, this shows the power of pure, unadulterated love for Krishna. It's so powerful that love can control the all-powerful Lord. Or let us say, Krishna allows himself to be controlled by the love of his devotees. Love reigns supreme in Sri Vrindavan Dham, and that's where our hearts should be. So this is the intimate, sweet love of Braj, not to be found even in Vaikuntha, the official kingdom of God. Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada writes in Lalita Madhava 1038, where the gopis are speaking. It's very sweet. "Dear Krishna, the fragrance of the mellows of your pastimes is spread throughout the forests of this glorious land of Vrindavan, which is surrounded by the sweetness of the district of Mathura. In the congenial atmosphere of that wonderful land, you enjoy your pastimes with your flute dancing on your lips, and surrounded by us, the gopis, whose hearts are always enchanted by unpredictable ecstatic emotions. Hare Krishna. This is just nectar. Vrindavan Dham. This is where we want to go. And by hearing Shravanam Kirtanam, it brings Krishna Smaranam. And by always being in association with the Lord by transcendental sound vibration, it's guaranteed that in time our love for Krishna will awaken. And when we leave this world, we'll go to where our heart takes us. And that will be, hopefully, Sri Vrindavan Dham. So, dear devotees, I'd like to finish today with a verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 21, verse 144, as well as Srila Prabhupada's purport, because that's the way we understand everything in Krishna consciousness. So verse 144 says, and I conclude, the verse is first, the vibration of his flute is just like a bird that creates a nest within the ears of the gopis and always remains prominent there, not allowing any other sound to enter their ears. Indeed, the gopis could not hear anything else, nor are they able to concentrate on anything else, not even to give a suitable reply. Such are the effects of the vibration of Lord Krishna's flute. And then Srila Prabhupada, he writes, and it's very interesting, the vibration of Krishna's flute is always prominent in the ears of the gopis. Naturally, Prabhupada writes, they cannot hear anything else. Constant remembrance of the holy sound of Krishna's flute keeps them enlightened and enlivened, and they do not allow any other sound to enter their ears. Since their attention is fixed on Krishna's flute, they cannot divert their minds to any other subject. In other words, a devotee who has heard the sound of Krishna's flute forgets to talk or hear of any other subject. Now listen to the next thing Prabhupada said. This vibration of Krishna's flute is represented by the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. A serious devotee of the Lord who chants and hears this transcendental sound vibration becomes so accustomed to it that he cannot divert his attention to any subject matter not related to Krishna's blissful characteristics and paraphernalia. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada. You know, we're hearing in this class and the previous class and more classes how the flute is so powerful, it attracts the devotees, it awakens their ecstatic love. Prabhupada said, this vibration of Krishna's flute is represented by the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The same effect will be there if we chant sincerely. Follow Prabhupada's instructions how to chant Hare Krishna, and if we distribute that chanting to the general public. This is the secret of Krishna consciousness. I'd like to thank all of you. I left Mayapur. It was hard to leave Mayapur. But I'm back in Vrindavan. I'm very happy to be here, at least for a few days. I'm going to America in a few days, do some programs here and there. But I can't stay away from Vrindavan too long, so I'll be back in 3 weeks. But we will continue with our lecture series on this, what stimulates us to love Krishna, this different paraphernalia. And next Friday, I'll be somewhere on the East Coast of America, but we will discuss the mirrors, how the mirrors in Krishna's pastimes stimulate us for eventual ecstatic love. Thank you. Glories to Prabhupada. See you in a week. Shri Shri Gauranitai ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Radha Shama Sundar ki, Vrindavaneshwari Srimati Radharani ki, Mayapur Dhamma ki, Shri Shri Gauranitai ki, Shri Krishna Sankirtan Yagya ki, Nitai Gaur Vimanandi, Jai Jai Sri Sri Radhe Sham. May Prabhupada's glories be sung. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome back once again to our ongoing series on the glories of our most beloved Sri Vrindavan Dham. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pastaja Deshatani. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So we are continuing with our mini-series on stimulus for ecstatic love. Again, based on Srila Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion, chapter 26, wherein it's described in great detail the various paraphernalia and articles of Radha and Krishna that help stimulate or awaken our dormant love for them. In this regard, sometimes Srila Prabhupada would use the simple analogy of a baby's small shoes, in that when a mother sees her child's shoes somewhere, those shoes immediately remind her of her child in loving devotion. In the same way, when a devotee sees or hears or touches things related to the Lord, his feelings of affection and love for the Lord are awoken. In the last two lectures, we discussed how the sound of Krishna's flute awakens feelings of ecstatic love in the hearts of pure devotees. In chapter 31 of Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada gives an example. He writes that once the cowherd boys in Vrindavan, he uses the word, were vainly searching after Krishna for a long time, and for that reason their faces became darkened and their complexions appeared faded. And just then they heard the faint vibration from Krishna's flute coming from a nearby hill. And immediately all of them became very much engladdened. Nectar of Devotion. Now the Acharyas write that Srimati Radharani also experiences ecstatic love when in contact with certain things connected to her beloved Krishna. For example, many Acharyas say that black is actually Sri Radha's favorite color because, well, Krishna is famous as Shyam Sundar, meaning he who has a dark bluish-black complexion like a rain cloud. And in this regard, Radharani often wears a dark blue sari so that she can always remember Krishna. She's reminded of Krishna during Amavasya, the moonless dark black night, and Krishna Paksha, which means when the moon is waning. Again, it's dark out, so she remembers Krishna. And she remembers Krishna from the Krishna Sara, which means the black deer that she often sees in Vrindavan. And I was reading Krishna Sara also is a name for Sri Radha, meaning she who takes Krishna as the essence of her very existence, Krishna Sara. She's also reminded of Krishna by the Brahmaras, which means the bluish-black bumblebees. It's described whose effulgent color and frantic buzzing awaken her love for Krishna. Then there's there's Kajal, or the black eyeliner cosmetic, which reminds Radhika of Krishna in whichever way she glances, because her eyes, along with her mind and heart, are always surrounded by the dark Shyamasundar or Krishna, by dark Shyamasundar Krishna. Then Kasturi, the black musk dot on her chin, placed there by her gopi friends, is also a constant reminder of dark Krishna. Then the Acharyas say that winter season, like what? Winter season also always reminds her of Krishna and helps to awaken her love for Krishna with its long, dark nights. Anything dark, bluish black like a monsoon cloud. Then there's the famous dark tumultuary. We've discussed that many times, how it always puts her into ecstasy when she sees it, reminds her of Krishna. There's also the monsoon rain clouds, which resemble Krishna's dark hue. The Acharyas say, along with their rumbling, which sounds like Krishna's flute to her. She's Krishna conscious. Blue lotuses in Vrindavan, of course, remind Sri Radha of Krishna, as does the dark Yamuna River. And even evening, called Shaim in Hindi, reminds her of Krishna. As well as the deep blue sapphire gem, which she wears in bracelets and necklaces to always keep Krishna in her thoughts. So in this way. Now, I was reading, it's really interesting, that sometimes the bluish black color of Krishna has the opposite effect on Sri Radha. Like what? We just described how, that the sham color reminds her of Krishna everywhere, but sometimes this color, bluish black like a monsoon cloud, it has an opposite effect on Sri Radha. It's all part of Radha and Krishna's loving dealings, though. But anyway, how so? How does it have the opposite effect? Well, it's described that once when Sri Radha heard how Krishna was showing some affection to another gopi, she became transcendentally angry. Man, again, is the word in Sanskrit. But this surprised some of her friends. This man is described by Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati in his Radha Rasa Sudhanidhi, text 89, how her friends became surprised. And he writes, one gopi addresses Sri Radha. "O Ishwari, I know that you like the dark night when the moon is waning, the newly blossoming blue lotus, black bumblebees, the black deer, the dark tamal tree, the dark monsoon clouds, and the dark Yamuna river, because they remind you of Krishna. But why then do you dislike charming Krishna, who resembles them in name and form now?" But Radharani, being so upset with Krishna, didn't answer her friend. Instead, she started to reject Krishna. How so? By vowing never again to look at anything bluish black like a monsoon cloud. This was her reaction. She was angry at Krishna. So then the acharyas say she cast off her blue sari, blue bangles, and sapphire necklace, and put on a red sari with ivory bangles and a pearl necklace. It's just the opposite. Then she wiped off the musk dot on her chin, then the kajal around her eyes. Then she replaced all these items with white sandalwood paste decorations. The acharyas say she even went so far as, when she saw a rain cloud coming, she opened up an umbrella to block its view. We've all seen paintings, Radharani's looking in the sky and there's the bluish black monsoon cloud and she's experiencing ecstasy. Not this time. She took the umbrella and blocked its vision. Then what did she do? She whitewashed all of Vrindavan's tamal trees and even refused to meet her own girlfriend named Shamala. And I was reading she wouldn't even look at the peacocks because their feathers reminded her of Krishna's turban. It's also described that when she saw her own black hair reflected in a mirror, she broke that mirror into 100 pieces. And when the sun set that night, she covered her eyes with her palms to prevent from seeing the darkness of night. So the opposite effect. Now, of course, these are all wonderful expressions of man, and are all part of Radha and Krishna's loving pastimes in Vrindavan, because what causes separation, but in the separation they develop an intense desire, sambho, to meet again. So it's all part of Purnamasi's plan, because in Vrindavan, where ultimately such loving dealings, well, they all end on a sweet note. And all that is bluish, black like a rain cloud again becomes sweet and beautiful within the mind and the heart of Srimati Radharani. There's always a good ending in Braj, in Krishna consciousness. Anyway, that's my introduction. I was reading those things, I just had to share them. But for today's lecture, I would actually like to discuss how mirrors mirrors, something so simple as a mirror, play a very prominent role in being a stimulus for awakening ecstatic love for Radha and Krishna, which is the theme of these lectures. Now, I did a lot of research. Mirrors are very much involved in Krishna service. I was reading that in the eightfold daily pastimes of Krishna, Krishna looks at himself in the mirror at all those 8 times of the day as they begin. So they look good to meet Sri Radha. And mirrors in Krishna's pastimes, they even have different names. Like there's different types of flutes and different types of sticks and whatever. So there's different types of mirrors and they have different names. I mean, it's the details that make this so interesting. Like, for example, Dharpan, that means mirror. Or a mirror is also called Pratibimba Dharshak, means beholder of shadow. Mirrors can also be called Rupa Vahak. Rupa Vahak means they're carriers of beauty. Or Kama Shashan Meru, the platform of Cupid's kingdom. Or Mukur, another name for mirror, and Arshi, which means a woman's mirror. Now, one of the services of Sri Radha's maidservants is to show these mirrors to Sri Radha after dressing her, like we do in deity worship. Those of you who are pujaris, you know we dress the deities and we show a mirror for the Lord's pleasure. It's one of my favorite parts of doing puja each morning. So when these maidservants do this, after dressing Radharani, I was reading, they hold the mirrors with 2 hands. One hand on top of the mirror and the other hand on the bottom of the mirror. And after showing the mirror to the divine couple when they're together, these maidservants then place the mirrors to their hearts with a prayer that the form of the divine couple displayed in the mirror will remain forever in their hearts. Wow. Now, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur reveals his heart's desire to offer a mirror to Sri Radha in his book entitled Sankalpa Kalpadruma, verse 33. It's one of my favorite books. Sankalpa Kalpadruma. He writes as follows: O Mistress Sri Radha, your limbs are perfumed with natural fragrance, but still I will worship them with kumkum powder and offer you a lila kamala, a lotus flower, in your hand. Then I will happily show you a mirror embedded with gems and precious stones in which to see yourself. Hare Krishna. Beautiful prayer. Now, the Acharyas describe that Sri Radha herself uses a mirror to see if her decorated face will please Krishna. And she usually uses 3 types of mirrors in this regard. Lots of mirror details. She has 3 types of mirrors that she uses personally. To see a large image of her face, she uses a concave mirror. To see a normal image of her face, she uses a normal mirror. And to see a small image of her face, she uses a convex mirror. There you go. But actually, she has many types of mirrors. I had to look around a lot. And her favorites are a mirror in a gold frame embedded with emeralds, a mirror in a mother of pearl frame, a mirror in an ivory frame, a mirror framed in jade stone, a mirror framed in zari. I had to look up zari. Zari is gold embroidery on a velvet cloth. Zari. She has a mirror with a frame of silver and a mirror placed in a frame of pearls. And a mirror framed in exotic wood. Now, there are also what are called prakritik dharpans. These are natural mirrors that are available in the Vrindavan forest. In what sense? Well, first of all, Krishna uses these mirrors to see himself, to be sure that he's attractive to Sri Radha. So what are these natural mirrors in Vrindavan that Krishna uses to make sure he's looking well for Radha? Very interesting. One such mirror is Jamuna Devi, the river Jamuna, whose waters on a clear, calm day, it's described, perfectly reflect Krishna's perfect form. That's poetry. Perfectly reflect Krishna's perfect form. All glories to Jamuna Devi. Another natural mirror are crystal white Govardhan Shilas, which are shiny and which Krishna, after decorating himself, looks into. He looks into the Shilas. Another natural mirror that Krishna looks in to see how he's looking is the gold plate upon which Krishna eats his meals. I was reading, it's very smooth and shiny and gives an excellent reflection. And finally, other natural mirrors are the eyes of his cows, which constantly stare at Krishna without blinking. They're natural mirrors. Now, of course, as one can imagine, there are many pastimes related to these various transcendental mirrors. For example, one rainy day, Sri Radha, being bound by social customs, could not leave her home in Varshana. So as a result of feeling intense separation from Krishna, she just fainted. And when Lalita, her dear friend, entered the room, she tried to revive Sri Radha but was unable to do so. So she, Lalita, who's known as, I was reading, the one whose mind runs faster than the 7 horses of the sun god. The one whose mind runs faster than the 7 horses of the sun god started thinking of ways to revive Sri Radha. And eventually she came up with an ingenious plan. She began putting mirrors everywhere in the room. I mean everywhere. On the floor, on the walls, on the ceiling, the corners. She just put mirrors everywhere. Then it's described that Lalita, who, quote, has control over the climate and clouds by dint of a boon bestowed on her by Purnamasi, Yogamaya, transformed all the individual dark clouds in the sky outside into different shapes of Krishna. Then she arranged that these cloud-like images of Krishna enter through the windows of Radha's room and reflect on the many mirrors everywhere. Then Lalita, who's described as also expert in playing a flute, just like Krishna, played a specific melody which is known to awaken souls who are experiencing separation from Krishna. And when this sweet sound of the flute entered the ears and heart of Sri Radha, she opened her eyes and saw Krishna's form dancing in the reflection of all these mirrors. And so then in ecstasy, she stood up, I was reading, and started running in all 4 directions of the room, trying to catch the image of Krishna everywhere in those mirrors. And spinning around and laughing, she thought that she was dancing with Krishna. And in this way, Lalita created an illusion to help Sri Radha overcome feelings of separation from Krishna with mirrors. I was also reading that, inspired from this pastime, which is well known in Vrindavan, the Rajput kings of Rajasthan made similar rooms in their palaces. They're known as Shish Mahals, or palaces of mirrors, to capture images of Krishna for the pleasure of Sri Radha. Jai Sri Radhe. Now, one such mirror palace can be seen at the Amber Fort in Jaipur in Rajasthan. I've been there. There's mirrors everywhere. Such a mirror room also exists in Vrindavan, near the Govindadev temple at the backside of Brahmakund. You can go there. Now, there's also the famous pastime that took place at Kushum Sarovara, where Krishna very carefully and with much devotion one time decorated Sri Radha's hair with her permission. I told that a few years ago. And when he finished doing so, Radha gazed into the mirror to see his work. And as she did so, Krishna walked around behind her to peer over her shoulder. But as Sri Radha looked into the mirror, her first impulse was not to look at herself, but to look at Krishna's reflection, not her own. It's described that, like a thirsty chikora bird, she drank the rays from his moon-like face, now even more beautiful due to his service of decorating her hair. But finally their eyes met, and he said to her, "Dearest, what do you think? Did I decorate your hair nicely?" Then only for Krishna's pleasure did Sri Radha examine her own reflection, her hair. Then she spoke to Krishna in the mirror, "Shyam, no one has ever decorated me as nicely as you have. You are truly the presiding deity of adornment." Another beautiful description of Krishna. She said, "You are truly the presiding deity of adornment. Hari, you have outdone even my dearest friends." And I was reading that Radharani also wears a mirror ring on her small finger. She wears a mirror ring. Why? Well, due to strict social customs, she has to cover her face with her dupada, her veil, making it, difficult or impossible to see Krishna. But when she looks down at the mirror ring on her finger, this allows her to have the reflection of Krishna as a darshan. She has darshan of Krishna in the reflection in the ring, meaning that anytime he's standing nearby, she can have darshan of the Lord with that mirror ring. And she also has a small mirror frame in the shape of a heart that she wears as a necklace. Now the specialty of that mirror, you could say pendant, is that it captures the form of Krishna whenever Sri Radha gets a rare opportunity to look at him. Sometimes there's those sidelong glances. So the mirror captures the form of Krishna in the pendant. And it's described that this image of Krishna stays in this mirror pendant for more than 24 dandas. Now, one time in a lecture we described that one danda is 24 minutes. So we do the math that the image of Krishna stays in that pendant, 24 dandas. It means 574 minutes or 9.6 hours. And she has that. Often she gets that glance, and she gets to see Krishna, and he sees her and catch it in the mirror. So therefore, Radha always covers that pendant with a cloth so that no one can see the mirror with their beloved's image in it. Wonderful pastimes of Sri Vrindavan Dham. So I would like to end with a beautiful poem by Taj Biwi. You remember we discussed her, this wonderful devotee. She was Muslim, but she became a great Vaishnavi in Vrindavan. She was a poet. I'd like to finish with her poem, very beautiful poem. She wrote, "O Saki, I showed a mirror to the divine couple who were intoxicated in each other's beauty. And when they looked into the mirror, they felt lost in it. I was completely aware of their eye talk, meaning talking by eye motions. Indeed, it took away all the material desires and worry from my heart. Why am I sitting in this house? I should go out and chant the holy names of the Lord. Taj," talking to herself, "your heart is like a mirror. Clean it and glance always at the beautiful form of the divine couple." Hare Krishna. Mirror pastimes. Just by hearing these mirror pastimes, somehow even in our hearts this love of Krishna is gradually awoken. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, the revealer of the Dham. So we'll be back in a week. Actually, I'm in New York City right now, in America. I have jet lag, but still I wanted to serve all of you by sharing with you all these wonderful pastimes. And I'll be back next week as well. So thank you so much. Shishi Gauranitai ki, Shishi Krishna Balaram ki, Shishi Radha Shama Sundar ki, Vrindavaneshwari Shrimati Radharani ki, Mayapur Dhama ki, Shishi Gauranitai ki, Shri Krishna Sankirtan ki, December Marathon ki, back home, back to Godhead ki, Nitai Gaur Pimanandi, Jai Jai Sisi Radhe.
Vatsala Sri Gaura Hari Vajabhakata Vatsala Sri Gaura Hari Sri Gaura Hari Sahi Goshta Bihari Nanda Jasomati Chita Hari Dhira Damodara Ishaye Kono Bhova Mandire Bashi Karaha Bojano Nandirani Deshi Bashi Giri Baradari Baladeva Saha Soka Boise Sari Sari Shukta Shakhari Vaji Lalita Kushmanda Dalidana Durga Tumi Dadi Mocha Kanda Mudabora Mash Boda Roti Kabritana Daskuli Pistaka Kir Kuli Payasana Kapura Amrita Keli Ramba Kirashara Amrita Rasalama Dvadasha Pakora Luci Sinisar Puri Ladura Sabali Bhojana Korena Krishna Hoye Kutuhali Radhikara Pakayana Bibida Bhanjana Paramayanande Krishna Korena Bhojana Chale Bale Ladu Khai Sri Madhu Mandala Babala Bajaya Deya Hari Bolo Radhikari Gani Hari Nayane Rapone Tripta Hoye Kai Krishna Jasoda Bhavani Bhojana Priya Krishna Subhasita Bari Sabe Mukha Prakaloy Hore Sari Sari Asta Mukha Prakaliya Jata Sakagane Anande Vishrama Kore Baladeva Sane Jambula Rasalane Shambula Masala Tahake Krishna Chandra Suke Nidagela Vishalaka Shiki Pucha Chama Apurva Sayaya Krishna Suke Nidayaya Yasomati Anga Priye Danishtaya Nito Sri Krishna Prasad Radha Unje Hoye Prito Lalithari Sakti Gana अशेष पाया मने मने सुखे राधा कृष्ण गुण गाया हरि लीला एकमात्र जहाँ प्रमोद भोगरती गाय ठाकुर भक्ति विनोद भक्त वत्सल श्री गौर हरि भज भक्त वत्सल श्री गौर हरि श्री गौर हरि सहि गोष्ठ बिहारी श्री गौर हरि सहि गोष्ठ बिहारी